Okay, so Richard's coming off the stage.
You're on air live now.
So we are live right now in the Google Hangout. So we have Fabien Cousteau, 63 feet beneath the ocean surface. Look at him, there he is. And hopefully we'll see some Aquanaut action behind you from Mission 31. So we're going to talk to Fabien about the awesomeness and living in this little bubble with noises, apparently. And we have Wendy Schmidt. We have Wendy Schmidt, who's the president of the Schmidt Family Foundation and co-founder of Schmidt Ocean Institute, who is joining us from her home in California this fine Tuesday morning. And, there he is, like on cue, Richard Branson, founder of Virgin Group and Ocean Elders. Hi, Richard Branson. Good morning to everyone.
Lovely to see you.
Good morning. So this is my first Google Hangout, so thanks for playing along with me and inviting me to do this. And, I talk a lot on TV on my show about how I'm such a space geek, but it's been fascinating learning about the ocean. And Fabien, I have to begin with you, and I know you talk to so many kids around the world about what you eat and what it's like living in this little capsule. But can you just tell me first, the word cosmonaut? I know about cosmonauts, but aquanaut, what is that exactly?
Aquanaut was coined as a term for people who live underwater at saturation depth. In the 60s and all the way to now, there have been undersea habitats, very much akin to what one would consider the International Space Station, except this is the inner space station. This one is the only undersea marine laboratory of its kind, and we're really blessed to be here. My new science team is just walking in right now, so there's a little bit of chaos in the background. I apologize, but we're very excited, and here we are.
I have to say the signal's pretty awesome for you being where you are, and I'm seeing some fish behind you, so this is cool by the window. I guess we should almost start by talking about why we're all on this Google Hangout together. It's obvious, Fabien, why you're with us, but Richard Branson, I think of you, I think of space. Why do you care about this? Why are you here?
Well, the world is principally water, and our oceans are full of beautiful species that we are doing our best to destroy. And so through organizations like the Oceanic Elders, we spend a lot of time trying to protect species from destruction and try to make our seas sustainable, and they can be sustainable for hundreds of years if we manage them properly. But if we continue at the rate we're going, we're going to decimate the shark species, the ray species, and other things for things like shark fin soup to China and Vietnam, and the gills for rays to the same area. So there's work to be done to try to make sure that we protect our beautiful oceans.
How would you feel about living underwater for 31 days, Richard Branson? Do you think you could swing it like our friend Fabien here?
I take my hat off to him. I mean, it's a wonderful commitment, and through that commitment, he's managed to get programs like this to actually get out and talk about the oceans, and the oceans are not talked about a lot. What we're trying to do, all of us, I think, on this panel, is to create more nature reserves. I mean, on land, there's something like 18% of Earth is protected in nature reserves. In the oceans, it's less than 1%. To create more nature reserves, and to get out there and try to get the greater seas protected. At the moment, beyond 200 miles outside countries, the oceans are completely unprotected, and so these enormous trawlers go out and they'll take the dolphin, they'll take the sharks, they'll take everything in their nets and kill them, and there's just no policing at all. So so between us all, we're doing our best to try to get the laws changed.
Mm-hmm. Wendy, to you, just part of this whip through, I'm curious why, you care. I mean, from everything I've read about you, you were sort of even inspired by Jacques Cousteau, by his documentaries as a little girl, and you spent much of your life, too, in terms of conservation, in terms of talking to kids. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, we have our Schmidt Ocean Institute, which is a mobile platform. Our research vessel Falcor was launched in 2012, and Eric and I actually believe. I mean, obviously, Richard said it. The oceans are under attack, and the reason the oceans are under attack is because we really don't understand how dependent we are upon the oceans. 70% of the oxygen we breathe comes from the oceans. 2 to 3 billion people on this planet have their livelihood from the oceans. And we're not only overfishing, we're polluting. We have plastic gyres in every ocean. It's really the scale of human activity in the last 100 years that is having an impact on our life support system, which is the oceans. So when I was a child growing up in suburban New Jersey, Jacques Cousteau was on television. It was really kind of neat, but it was in black and white, and I didn't even know where he was. So that was how disconnected I was, you know? And today we have so many ways to see the ocean, not just from 35,000 feet when we're flying over it, but we can understand this system that we're part of, and we can share this data in real time and really accelerate the pace of scientific research. You know, we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about our own planet.
And that's the craziest part because, you know, listen, we covered this missing plane a little while here on CNN, and I think one of my biggest takeaways in talking so much about the world's oceans is that we've only explored 5%. And Fabien Cousteau, you came on my show before you went down below to talk about that, which just I had no idea. And so here you are. Can I just, I mean, we're going to have this very intellectual conversation, but can I just put on my kid hat and ask you, like, what is it like being down there? I know you're trying to best your grandfather by staying down for 31 days, and it's so much more than that, I know. But what are you eating? How are you sleeping? Where do you go to the bathroom? Can you answer those questions?
Well, all those questions are actually common questions a lot of people ask, so you're not the only kid out there. And they're very good questions because we are in an alien environment, and this we're surrounded by the final frontier on our planet, which is pretty amazing. Last night was one of the most spectacular displays of predator-prey behavior I've ever seen, and it was right outside our viewport. We saw a Goliath grouper go after a barracuda. We saw sharks go after all sorts of animals. It was just amazing. And we know so little about the oceans. It was mind-blowing to be able to see that and have a front row view. Now, to get here and to live here is a very different story. It's much more complicated. Obviously, we're in saturation, which means we're at the same pressure as the ambient pressure outside this viewport, which means that the air is more syrupy. I have a harder time breathing, as you can probably tell. I probably sound funny. And beyond that, I can't even whistle. So, you know, all these little things that we take for granted. Well, the pressure down here is about 3 times the atmospheric pressure where you are right now. And so that definitely affects us in various ways. But, you know, despite that, and despite the fact that we eat freeze-dried foods or pre-prepared foods, that we go to the bathroom in a very unsexy way, a little bit like what astronauts have to deal with. You know, you're in something the size of a school bus with 5 of your new best friends, and you just have to make do with those things. So
and I heard your AC went out at some point.
Oh, that was an interesting one. Yeah. So I've been to the Amazon. I've spent you know, years with my grandfather in the Amazon, 11 months recently with my sister and my father. And this was just like the Amazon when the AC went out, except that we didn't have the mosquitoes.
Oh, and so now you have these 2, I'm sure, lovely female MIT, you know, robotics scientists who, what, are they down there now? I'm sure they are loving the idea of no AC with you guys.
Well, we literally just saw them walk in. They just switched out with our other 2 scientists. We now have Grace Young from MIT and Liz McGee from Northeastern University. Both are going to continue with our science that we're doing down there between climate change related issues, especially acidification and pollution around those underwater coral cities. And of course, we're going to be testing out some very new equipment like the Edgertronic camera, which will hopefully be able to get some slow motion predator-prey behavior, especially with regard to the endangered species, the Goliath grouper, which happens to be living right under our habitat.
What? What? I know, I have my eye very fixed on your window to see, look at all those creatures swimming around beside you. And I think this, Richard, you know, I definitely, growing up as a little girl, had this real sense of awe in terms of looking out at the stars and you know, wanting to borrow my dad's telescope, looking out, thinking of what could be. I mean, there are real parallels, Richard, between, you know, what lies beneath and what lies above, both space exploration and you know, the ocean.
Yes, I mean there are 500 people who have been to space in many years, and they've had extraordinary journeys. There've been only 2 people who've been to the bottom of the oceans, and those 2 people literally got to the bottom of the ocean, set up a cloud of dust, and saw really nothing. And so, and it's believed that you know, a big percentage of the species in the oceans we haven't discovered yet. So, you know, so that there is a challenge now to try to build craft that can go to the deepest places of the oceans, withstand the sort of 1,600 times the pressure on an aeroplane, and you know, and make it successful, and that's still to be achieved.
But what is it about, when we talk about the oceans, Richard, what is it about this that, you know, you really support this Mission 31 and everything Fabien and his crew is doing? And also, you touched on this a moment ago, but where should the national conversation go when it comes to conservationism?
Well, there are, I mean, what's important is that we can sustainably fish our oceans for hundreds of years, and not overfish. The cod, for instance, off Newfoundland, we overfished it, and it may never come back. But if we can actually monitor the oceans properly, we can we can sustainably live off the species in the oceans for forever. Mm-hmm. But we're not doing it in a proper way at the moment. About 1.5 million sharks a week are killed for their fins, for shark fin soup, from China and Vietnam, and there are wonderful organisations like Sharkwater, like Wild Aid and the film Sharkwater, that have been campaigning to try to get that changed, and you know, places, you know, around the world, I mean, countries around the world should absolutely ban the use of shark fin soup. Hotels should ban the use of shark fin soup, and countries, you know, should not allow you know, fishermen to catch sharks and cut their fins off.
Right.
So there's rules that need to be made to protect species that are in peril.
So there are rules, but then, Wendy, there's also education. I mean, a case in point, exactly what Fabien's doing for 31 days. But what I was reading about the Falcor, and you mentioned it a second ago, I mean, you have to have these scientists, right? And they get these grants, they get money from the government, but there have been all kinds of cutbacks. And so the issue is, you know, these scientists get this money, but they can't really spend the time necessary to do the research, to do the work that they need to do. And so you and your husband are providing this. Can you tell me about Falcor? It's this vessel for scientists, correct?
That's right. Yes, it's a mobile platform for scientists. And yes, you're right. The cutback in science research across the board is very serious. I think it's about 17% since 2010.
Wow.
And so we know that one of the obstacles to learning more about the oceans is ship time. So what we've done is to invite proposals for scientists all over the world to join us on Falcor, to bring their team on board, to use our equipment, our forward-facing sonar systems for mapping, our submersibles of various kinds, our laboratories, and to share the data transparently that they collect. So if somebody is studying hypoxia, let's say, dead zones in the ocean off the Pacific Northwest, there might be a scientist somewhere in Japan who's looking at the same issue. And to share the data, to share the conversation, is to accelerate the pace of scientific understanding. We also are encouraging students to come aboard. We've had 2 student cruises out of the University of Hawaii in the last couple of months to encourage hands-on experience for potential oceanographers to get to see and to do the basic research that they can build upon. So it's really about making connections, right? It's about making connections with the public and the public imagination, which is Fabien, you're doing such a marvelous job with, Richard also. It's about connecting scientists together and connecting the next generation to the oceans, not as something out there, not as something I saw as a child, which was very removed from my life, but for something very essential, not just because we eat fish, but because we need to care about the health of the oceans. Imagine, for example, the acidification that's going on now continues without stopping. We know that there are species who will thrive in acidic oceans, like jellyfish. They'll love it. But the kind of, maybe the fish we want to eat won't survive and won't do so well. We've already fished 90% of the big fish out of the ocean. What are we trying to do? What's our intention? I think that's the big question. And in terms of policy, we need to make the right decisions, as Richard said, to create a sustainable ocean, like we're partners, because we need the ocean more than the ocean needs us.
That's a perfect point. Go ahead, Fabien.
That's exactly right, Brooke. And what Richard and Wendy and many others are doing out there is phenomenal to be able to highlight the importance of the ocean. This is our life support system. Without it, we don't exist. And right now, for decades, we've been treating it as an endless resource and a garbage can. We dump 1 million pounds of plastic in our ocean every hour. We fished out over 60% of our world's total wild fish stock. As Wendy pointed out, we've fished out over 90% of the pelagics, which are the billfish, the tuna, all the traveling fish, basically, the sharks. And in essence, most people just don't know. And so through the lens of adventure and with a very real emphasis on STEM education, we're able to hopefully bolster people understanding why this is so important, whether we live on the ocean front or 1,000 miles away. It doesn't matter. The oceans are us. We are water. We are, that represents our lives, that represents our economy, our well-being, our health. And we really need to get people interested, whether they live in Wisconsin or right here at Aquarius. And so hopefully through this consortium of all of our efforts, we're able to get the general public interested in the oceans in a passionate way, but in a very real and educated way.
Do you get the sense, Fabien, just talking to all these different kids really from all around the world? I mean, I'm hearing all of your points, and it's sort of almost this no duh sort of notion. I mean, we're surrounded by oceans. Why are we treating our oceans in the way we are? And I'm wondering if by getting our kids excited, by doing exactly what you're doing, they can say, hey, Mom and Dad, stop doing this.
Oh, absolutely. I think kids are definitely the solution. You know, they're amazing. They have boundless energy, crazy, fun, interesting ideas, and they don't know what the word impossible is. More important than all of that is they can get their parents motivated. I mean, you know, CEOs have kids too, and if their kids go up to them and say, hey, Mom, Dad, why are you squandering my future? Why am I not going to be able to enjoy these things that you've taken for granted?
Yeah.
That's a big, that would shake people up. And I really do think that kids are better educated or or more knowledgeable now than we were at their age. So we're seeing change. The change has to happen a lot faster.
So can I ask you? Go ahead, Richard.
No, I'm just going to say one positive example, which is always good to have,
yes.
of governments getting together, was that the governments got together a number of years ago to try to protect the whales in the oceans, and by and large, I mean, 99% of the whales had been protected, and you know, the whale, some whales that were on the verge of extinction, like the right whale, for instance, is beginning slowly but surely to come back, and
Yay.
people around the world are beginning to enjoy seeing the magnificent you know, whales in different parts of the country, and a live whale is worth so much more to a country than a dead whale. I mean, you know, live whales excite tourists. They go out, they excite people who live around them, excite children, and they're just magnificent to watch. And And I think based on the experience of what the international community can do in protecting the whales, it would just be wonderful if they could go a little bit further and protect other species in the oceans as well.
They are magnificent creatures, aren't they? Just to see them in their own habitats. Just in the last few minutes I have, Fabien, I know you're taking all these fun videos down there, but your grandfather made this beautiful documentary when he was underwater for those 30 days. I know you're planning on making a documentary, but once you surface, what does, beyond these films that we'll all be watching and sharing with our children, what does success really look like for you post Mission 31?
Well, it's a very good question. Thanks to the advent of new technologies such as what we're doing right now, communicating in real time from the bottom of the sea, we're able to reach a broader audience than my grandfather was able to. He was dreaming these things up of talking to people live from underwater, but unfortunately that technology didn't exist. So symbolically, we'd like to reach out to a minimum of 331 million people, which I'm happy to say at our midway point we've already done. Beyond this, thank you. We hope to do many, many more because people are really excited about the oceans. It's a phenomenal place, and by highlighting some of those things through those short videos online, those photos, Twitter chats, and so on, Google Hangouts, we're able to really get people excited. Beyond this, of course, we're hoping to do a documentary film, a feature-length documentary film. We're shooting for it as if we had the budget. So we're in the process of that. There will be a phase 2, of course. And at the end of Mission 31, there's a Beyond Mission 31, of course, which is trying to, on a public campaign, continue on not only our mission, but just the mission of the oceans as a whole, as our circulatory system of life, to be able to motivate local communities, kids, and of course, governments to change and to protect the oceans as the blue heart of the planet, as Sylvia would say. My grandfather used to say, people protect what they love. But how can you protect what you don't understand? And that, hopefully, Mission 31 is at least a small part in that theater of life that will help influence generations to come.
I feel like a kid. I'm genuinely excited for all three of you all and everything that you're working on, and I want to get scuba certified like yesterday all of a sudden. So Fabien and Richard and Wendy, thank you all so much. And for everyone hanging out with us, just make sure you check out Fabien's Mission 31. Just go to mission-31.com. Thanks for all being my first the guinea pig in the Google Hangout. It's been awesome. Safe travels, and Fabien, good luck.
Brooke, Richard, and Wendy, thank you all so very much.
You're welcome.
Your granddad will be proud of you. Cheers.
Bye,
Good luck. Bye-bye.
Great.
Good.
Okay.